Hi. Welcome back to the second session of the first masterclass on ATM integration. So let's do a quick recap of what we had learned in the first session. So in the first session, we had learned about the very basics, which means that the ATMs and the Visa and the MasterCard are actually integrated through your switch. And this switch is interacting with the FlexQ core banking through something known as an ISO format message. So this message is a series of strings or containing certain information. So that's all we learned in the last session. So let's understand this field formatting in a bit more detail. So if you look at the strings which comes, there is a custom header, there is something known as a message type, there is the bitmap, and then there are fields, field 1, field 2, till field 128. So there are 128 fields in the message. Now, this is a TCP IP message. So at the beginning, there is something known as the message header. So in the TCP message header, the length of the message is stored. So for example, if the message length is 285, 285 would be written in the header of the TCP message. Now this 285 could be written in ASCII, or it could be converted, the decimal 285 could be converted into hexa and then transmitted in the header. Why this TCP header is very important is the core banking processor should know that, okay, I will have to read to 285, and then after that, it's going to be the start of another message of another transaction, right? So this message header is very important. Custom header is something which you agree upon with your switch and the core banking, saying that, okay, this is something which you will give as a constant. So you can ignore this for now. Message type is a very important field. It's a four-digit field, for example, 0200. Message type actually determines whether it is a financial request message or it's a financial reversal, whether it's a pre-auth, and so on. So we will try to understand a bit more on message type. Bitmap, we will park it for the next session. Field 1 to 128. So there are 128 fields. So these 128 fields, we will understand some of the important fields in the coming slides. But first, let's understand what is this message type. Now, the message type, as I said, it has got four components or four letters, right? So the first one suggests the year. So if the first letter is zero, it is means it is the 1987, the ISO 1987 standard. If it is one, it is 1993. If it's two, it's 2003. 1987 is 5 bar, the more popular one, the most popular one. Next letter stands for the type, whether it's a pre-auth message, whether it's a financial request, or whether it's a reversal. Now let's ignore pre-auth for a while. Financial request is the most commonest used. So any cash withdrawal, cash deposit, funds transfer request will come as a 2 in the second letter. 4 is for reversal. Reversal is if you want to reverse a financial request, that's the reversal. Probably in the next session, we'll understand why and when a reversal request is sent by the switch. The third stands for an advice message. 0 is normal and 1 is for response. So as you know that a request is sent from the switch to the core banking, and the core banking processes it and it sends a response. So if the third letter is actually 1, that means it's a response message. And finally, whether it's a normal or a repeat message, 0 is for normal, 1 is for repeat. So to get to the crux of it, let's take an example. 0 to 100, which means that it is a 1987 format. 2 means it's a financial request. 0 means it's a normal request. It is a request actually. And 0 means it is a normal. It's not a repeat message. 0 to 10 means it's a response message. 1987 format, it's a financial request and it's a response given by core banking to the switch. Similarly, a 1 to 20 is a 1993 format. It's a financial request, it's a force post, it's a normal message. And finally, this is a reversal message. It's a force post. So I understand there are quite a few complexities here, but for ease, let's try to understand with an example of a 1987 format, a financial request or a reversal, and a normal and a response. So things like pre-auth, force post, repeat, let's park it for subsequent sessions. So now let's get deeper into the message structure. As I told that the messages, there are 120 out of them, the 128 fields in the message rather. So each of these fields could be either mandatory or optional. So it may or may not be present. So you may ask, if there are 128 fields and the switch sends maybe out of the 128 only 20, how will the switch know about it? Or how would the software, the core banking software know about it? It's based on the secondary bitmap. The bitmap is something which tells the absence or the presence of the subsequent fields. So we will park this bitmap for now and let's go to the individual fields. The field 2 is the primary account number. Although it says it is a PAN or account number, it actually stores the card number. It's not the account number, it's the card number. Now, the card number is the debit card number which the customer swipes. Card numbers are not really required from a core banking perspective. Core banking actually requires the only the account number for processing. So you can actually mask the card number. Maybe you can give the first four and the last four because you might need to show it in the account statement. The other thing which you should know is the way the representation of the fields. So LL var means it is the length is preceded before the actual card number. So if it says that 16 and then you will have 16 letters of the card number. This helps the software, the core banking software, to understand how many card number is what is the length of the card number. So number two is nothing but the card number which is masked. Field 3 is probably the most important one. It is the processing code. As I said, 0 to 100 message type is for financial request. Now, how does the core banking know whether it's a financial request for cash deposit, cash withdrawal, and so on? So this six-letter processing code helps to understand that. So if the first two is 00 or 01, it is a cash withdrawal. If it is 20, it's a cash deposit. And if it's a 40, it's a funds transfer, and so on. So that is the significance of processing code. Transaction amount is the amount which the customer withdraws. So if he's withdrawing 500, so 500 will be the transaction amount coming here. The currency is in another field. We will come to it shortly. So this is just the amount. This is 12 numeric. Now, one thing to understand here is that ISO doesn't support decimals. So if it is 500, in this field, you will get 50000, including the minor. The settlement account and billing amount are complications which we'll see in subsequent sessions. Transmission date and time when the transaction happened. System trace ordinate number, which is TAN, is something which is unique, a unique identifier of the transaction sent by the switch. Of course, you have the transaction date, time, and so on. If required, the charges can be configured at the switch, and the switch can send the transaction fee, or it could be configured at the core banking level as well. So it depends on the implementation. So to continue, as I said, that field 49 is the currency. So if the customer is withdrawing 500 INR, so 500 will be there in the field 4 and INR will be there in transaction currency code. Now just, it will not be INR, it's numeric. So it will be the ISO currency code. So it will be the numeric equivalent because ISO currency codes are numeric. So coming back to field 90 is usually used for reversals. So we'll see reversals in a subsequent session. So before that, let me go back. So there are quite a few important things like retrieval reference number. Retrieval reference number or the RRN number is a very unique number to identify the transaction, similar to STAN, but here the RRN can be, it's unique by the network. So the RRN can repeat if the transaction is from Visa. The same RRN could be used for MasterCard. So RRN is unique for the network. Then you have something known as the acquirer institution ID, field 32. Then field 41 has the terminal ID. So each terminal, whether it's a POS machine or an ATM machine, it has got a terminal ID, and this terminal ID is very important. Going back, sorry, going back to the rest of the fields, the Last fields, which is the 102 and 103, is extremely important. 102 is the from account number, which is the debit account number. So if it's a cash withdrawal, you will debit it from the account number which is sent from the switch. The switch actually has the mapping of the card number and the account number. So that is why if the account number is sent by the switch, I don't really, or the core banking really need not know the card number. From the account number, which is coming in field 102, you can actually debit the account. Similarly, 103 is a two account number, which is for the credit. So if it's a cash deposit, 102 would be blank, 103 will have the account to credit. If it's a cash withdrawal, only 102 will have the account to debit. And of course, if it's a funds transfer and account to account, both 102 and 103 would be present. 126 is used for the pre-auth kind of transactions, which we are parking for the moment. So this is the important fields of a request message. A response message 0 to 10 has the same fields echoed back by the core banking. Now, there are some additional fields which the core banking needs to send. One is the authorization code saying that, okay, the core banking has authorized the transaction and this is the number. The 39 is the response code. The response code signifies whether it's a success or a failure. So it's a 00, it's a success. If it's a 91, it's a system failure. 51 stands for insufficient funds and so on. So that's a set of response codes which is identified by the switch so that it gives you the proper error message on the ATM terminal. Finally, we have 54, the balance of the account. Because remember, when you actually transfer, when you withdraw funds from the ATM, you see the balance after the transaction. So this is where it comes from. The core banking responds with the field 54, which is the available as well as the ledger balance. And finally, the mini statement. If you've done a request for a mini statement, the response, the mini statement data in a very precise, concise format is present in the 127 in the response. Now, just to highlight that certain implementations may specify that I need the core banking response for mini statement in some other field, let's say 48, which are reserved for specific implementation. So every implementation is unique. ISO 8583 is just a guideline which tells you what fields to use. There are reserved private fields which an implementer can use it for specific purposes. So I know this has been a very long session, but we have just barely scratched the surface. We just covered the very basic financial request and a response message. In subsequent session, we are going to understand the bitmap. We are going to understand the reversals, the pre-auths, and other other fields which we have not covered in this session. So thank you, and do join us for session 3.